Well, good morning, Patriots. Welcome to the 346th consecutive Friday meeting of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots. There are 110 of you present this morning. Thank you, thank you. That's a wonderful representation from this group. You know, as we've all seen in recent months and weeks, things are heating up around the world. And the good old U.S. of A. seems to have its footprint in the big midst of quite a few hot spots around the globe. And while the U.S. is not officially at war in any of today's major global conflicts, we remain deeply and strategically involved. As an example, the United States maintains an extensive military footprint in the Middle East, including permanent bases and naval assets. American forces are currently engaged in limited combat and counterterrorism operations in countries such as Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Iran, and Somalia, while we're also backing allies indirectly through weapons funding, intelligence sharing, and deterrent strategies in flashpoints like Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, and the Taiwan-China political territorial dispute. And if you think about it, our current armed forces missions mark a clear and distinguished shift from past decades. Instead of large-scale ground wars like War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the Gulf Wars, the U.S. is now operating in an era defined by persistent global lower-level military engagement and proxy conflicts without any formal declaration of war. The last time the United States Congress formally declared war was during World War II, specifically on December 8, 1941, against Japan following the attack on Pearl Harbor. Since World War II, Congress has authorized military force through resolutions, but Congress has not issued a single formal declaration of war since War II. Yet, as we're all aware, military force has been employed by numerous commanders-in-chief over the decades since War II without even a congressional resolution. In fact, estimates suggest that U.S. presidents have acted unilaterally and authorized military actions on more than 125 occasions without any formal congressional thumbs up. And many armed forces actions after 1973 that were reported under the War Powers Resolution are examples of force used without prior approval, showing a consistent pattern of executive-led military involvement. By the way, the War Power Resolution of 1973 required the President to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces to military action, and it forbids armed forces for remaining for more than 60 days, with a further 30-day withdrawal period, without congressional authorization for use of military force or a declaration of war by the United States. Then, in 2001, following the 9/11 attacks. Congress passed the 2001 Authorization for Use of Military Force, which was a joint resolution empowering the President to use all necessary and appropriate force against those responsible for the 9/11 attacks or those harboring terrorists.
It became the legal basis for indefinite conflicts against terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS without specific time or graphic limits, leading to a widespread debate over its broad, open-ended application. And presidents have invoked that 2001 authorization for use of military force for dozens of operations, leading to many deployments without a separate congressional vote. Justification for these operations has often been a broad interpretation of the 2001 authorization by the administration. So while the current wars themselves differ in location and scope, the trend is unmistakable. The world is experiencing the highest level of conflict since World War II. And the United States, even without formal declaring war, remains deeply entangled in how these conflicts evolve. American forces are currently engaged in limited combat and counterterrorism operations in countries such as Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, where we're also blocking allies indirectly through weapons, funding, intelligence sharing, and deterrent strategies in flashpoints like Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, and the ongoing Taiwan-China tensions that are keeping everyone on edge. This is an uneasy and uncertain time we're living in right now. It's a time when America's 248,000 deployed military and DoD personnel need and deserve our support here at home. They need reassurance that we support the success of their missions, their well-being, and the safe return of their loved ones. And that, my friends, is a mission of this Red Friday Patriots group. So again, our sincere thanks to each of you for joining us this morning in a show of solidarity and support for Americans deployed war fighters. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, thank you. We do have some guests that I would like to introduce now. If I see my cohort out there, the roving reporter, okay.
Hello. Check. Hello.
Ken Whitford. Where's Ken at?
No.
Ken, thank you. And you're from Wisconsin, Ken?
That's right.
Okay. And how did you hear about our Red Friday organization?
I was visiting friends in Mesa, this gentleman here.
Whoa.
And I was here 6 years ago. We got kicked out of here on a Friday night fish fry. They said we weren't authorized to come in because it was too busy. They shut the doors or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we...
Well, that wasn't our Red Friday group. That was a...
No,
American
that was
Legion.
a fish fry.
Right. That was a
Yeah.
fish fry going on.
Yeah.
And you are a Marine?
That's right.
Okay. I just had to clear my throat there.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
And you served from 66 to 68?
That's right.
Okay. And you were just a rifleman. And were you in Vietnam? Did you go to Nam?
Yep. And I went this past summer. I went over there with a group of military tour duty out of Washington, D.C. We went to everybody see where their fathers or brothers had been wounded or killed, and I got the case on April 30th, 58 years later, this past summer, where I was wounded. I was shot twice up on Hill H 61, and I went over there to my buddies that were killed that day and the ones that I was helping off the hill, and it was a chaotic day.
What an
April
experience.
30th, 67.
To the date. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, we're glad you're here with us today, and I hope you come back and join us many,
Yes.
many more times, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Chris Johnson. Where's Chris? Whoa, okay. I only say that, Chris, because most of us aren't that tall when we stand up. Most of us are like this when we stand up.
How do you think I feel? How do
when
you
you
think
stand
I
up
feel?
good and straight and tall, that's really good. Okay, Chris, and how did you find out about our Red Friday group?
I'm here with my grandpa Denny here. I'm visiting him from Minnesota.
Oh, wonderful, from Minnesota. Congratulations. And you're just a patriot then? You don't have any military service?
Yep, just a patriot.
All right, wonderful. Well, we're so glad to have you with us here today, and I hope you do come back and visit us again, okay?
Awesome. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you very much.
Okay, I'm coming through. Thank you.
Barbara Sorensen? There she is, okay. And Barbara, how did you hear about our Red Friday group?
We have friends here in Mesa.
Okay, and they invited you, or you just,
Yes, well, they invited my husband. He was here last week. He's a veteran.
okay. And so he talked you into coming today then, right?
Yes.
Okay, see, now that goes on, so when you go home, you talk to the neighbor, and the neighbor, because, and you just keep going, so you keep bringing people back for us. Okay. And you're just a patriot also?
Yes, I am, but I'm a mother of a son who's retired Air Force
Wonderful.
and currently works for Space Force, and also mother-in-law of a retired son-in-law from Air Force. And my granddaughter currently is Air Force,
Wow.
and she's working on pilot training.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Good for you.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and I hope you come back and see us again.
And I believe Eric is the one that sang the Star Spangled Banner last time.
Okay, Steve and Ann Turk. They're down front here.
Yeah, stand up. Look at
Steve, how are you? Ann,
I'm
good
just
to
fine,
see you.
thank you.
And how did you get involved with our, or hear
Like
about
everyone else here so far, we came down to visit friends, and he's involved very much in your organization, and so we thought we'd come today.
it? Wonderful. Well, we're glad to have you here.
Oh,
So,
we're
and I
glad
hope
to
you
be
do
here.
come back and see us again, too. And you were in the Washington National Guard?
Yes,
Okay, and from what time? 67?
67 to 73.
Okay. And what did you do in the National Guard?
Electronics Squadron, 215th to be precise.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we're glad to have you here with us, and we hope you come back and see us again very
Absolutely.
soon, okay?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Can I get a hoorah for all our guests? Hoorah! Thank you, thank you, thank you. 1 second. Sorry?
If I'm not mistaken, look on that sheet. I believe that Carl is the one who referred these folks here, right?
Yes.
Carl, when you were going to elementary school and you did something wonderful that the teacher recognized you for, did they ever give you a gold star? I went to Catholic school and got the little. Oh my goodness. This will not be punishing. This will not be punishing. Will you stand up? You know, we're going to put this star right here center like it's pointing north, and that's for your recruiting star.
All right, way to go. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I got a quiz for you folks, and I'm sure that your mathematics and gamers will join in on solving this one very quickly. So here's the pitch. Everybody got their ears on. We're going to put the quiz up on the screen, and will allow no more than 30 seconds for you to solve the quiz. The first person to stand during the 30-second period will be given the opportunity to answer the quiz. Do not answer the quiz until asked to do so. If the answer is incorrect, we'll go to the second person and et cetera, until we get it right. If the second person doesn't stand, then we'll do the third person. Now, Richard, Nancy, you will help me in identifying the first and second persons to stand and relay their names to me. Okay, we have a little prize for the correct answer, but no consolation prize, sorry. So here we go. Read the quiz you see on the screen. The time starts now. We got two back there, one up here. Okay. Is Bear? Is it Bear? Bear. Oh, okay. I can't see that far. Nancy, what's the name? Mac. Okay. All right. So, Mac, what is the answer? John. Woo! Great. Good job. Mac, come on up front. It's time for you to recite the Constitution or the Gettysburg Express or something. We'll figure something out. Okay, all of you folks know Larry Smith, our videographer, and his wife, Sue. Larry and Sue. Well, the other day, and now you have to remember this is Dick talking, okay, even though I don't have the hat and all that kind of stuff. The other day, I learned something about this fine couple that I thought I'd share with all of you today. You see, one night some years ago, when Larry and Sue were living in Salt Lake City, Sue didn't come home. No call, no messages, nothing, just a no-show. The next morning, she walked into the house like nothing had happened, very calm, very calm, said, "I stayed over at a friend's house," she told Larry. Well, needless to say, Larry raised an eyebrow about her comment and decided to check it out. So he called Sue's 10 best friends, one by one. Not a single one of them had any idea where she had been. So a few days later, Larry figured he'd play tit for tat. And he decided not to come home one night either. Larry left no message, made no call to her, nothing. The next morning he showed up early, acting perfectly normal, and said to Sue, "I stayed over at a friend's place." Well, Sue didn't argue or question him. She simply picked up the phone and called Larry's 10 best running buddies. 8 of them confirmed that Larry had stayed over at their place. And the other 2 said he was still there. This morning, our friend Larry Smith has prepared to deliver a presentation which I think you will find quite informative. You know, time and time again, Larry has leveraged his professional videography skills to deliver some unique products on our Red Friday meetings. What is interesting to note is that Larry's passion for video actually began decades ago and intensified during his 20-year career in the U.S. Air Force. Larry happened to be stationed at High Air Force Base in Germany when Kuwait was invaded, and he immediately volunteered to go, arriving in the Middle East on December 30th, 1990, less than 3 weeks prior to the launch of Desert Storm. Coincidentally, Larry had packed his home video camera for the deployment at that time. He didn't realize the significant ramifications that would have on his future as a civilian. Once on the ground, Larry was given carte blanche to video any and everything he wanted. In his free time, Larry captured every aspect of the daily lives of his squadron in the desert. And by the time the war had ended, Larry had accumulated 36 hours of video covering aircraft nose art, launching and recovery, tent city life, and playtime. He edited the 36 hours in a 4-hour documentary that included interviews with the pilots and the maintenance personnel. Then submitted a 15-minute video of pilot and maintenance team's daily routines, which won him a national amateur video contest. The event would spur his future in becoming a videographer. Larry Smith retired from the U.S. Air Force in July of 1996 after honorably serving our country for 20 years. Packing that video camera away in his carry-on bag as he headed out for Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and creating the documentary instilled in him a passion to become a videographer. Thanks to the GI Bill, Larry was able to attend Utah State University and earn a degree in engineering and technical education with an emphasis on curriculum development. And since 1990, Larry has been a professional videographer and has taught videography for 36 years, all influenced by his Air Force career. This morning, Larry has prepared to share some of his video recordings from his 5-month tour in the Middle East. Before we call upon Larry, I believe his wife, Sue, has a few words she wishes to share. Sue, you have the floor, my lady.
Larry does not know I'm going to speak this morning. Yes. Now, I'm up here this morning because I think all of you deserve the backstory to this presentation. Now, for 2 weeks, Larry and I have fought. We have fought about this presentation, and it hasn't been nice. Now, 2 weeks ago, I walk into his office, and he's quite happy. He says, "I'm just about done with the presentation." I said, "Well, great. That frees up some time." I said, "How long is it?" He said, "About 7 minutes. But if I talk real slow and pause a bit, I can stretch it to 10 minutes. I said, "I'm not coming to a 10-minute presentation with you talking slow." I told him there was so much more to share. He said, "Look, I am not putting the group to sleep. I am not going to bore them. I am getting down to the facts. And that is, I am talking about jets, bombs, and refueling." I said, "What about Tent City?" "That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about." Off I go. Now, we had this conversation several days in a row. On one day, I am sitting in the Arizona room in my chair, and I hear Larry. He is coming fast and furious across the house, and I know he's coming to me. And there he stands, looking down at me, and he says, "So you had to do it. You had to do it." And I said, "Do what?" He said, "So you had to call Dick Nations." I said, I haven't talked to Dick. He said, well, he just called me. Well, see, Larry, I guess, doesn't understand. Dick has a second sense, and he knew he needed to check up on Larry. And Larry told him, it's about 10 minutes. And Dick said, no way, brother. It better be a bit longer. Okay, so Larry goes back in his room. Later on, I go in and very gently I suggest a few things that he could add to his presentation today. And he says, okay. Well, that made me feel good. He said, I'm going to put them under tidbits. I said, I don't care how you categorize them, but as long as your speech is more than 10 minutes. So anyway, if you get a little bored this morning with the tidbits, it's all me. Okay? Now, is there someone out there that will give me a ride home? I don't know that I want to go home with him since I didn't tell him about my speech. So, let me introduce to you your videographer, your special guest speaker, Larry Smith.
Testing. Am I hot? Oh gosh. Wouldn't you rather listen to her than me? You know, having a pretty blonde up here is a lot, anyway. I guess you all are expecting something big after what she did. Thanks, Sue. You just raised the bar. And you gave away the best story. So I'm done. Everybody have a good morning. Golly gee willikers. Okay, so I'm Larry. The first thing I want to say is, in all my career of talking, I'm a retired teacher. And somebody asked me the other day, said, and when they found out that I'm going to be up here in front of vets, well, I said, Larry, the vets, which would you rather be in front of, a room full of vets or a room full of teenagers? And I had to think, because teenagers, I taught high school, and it was a no-brainer. I said teenagers. So anyway, Dick Nations and Nancy, I have to say, folks, I think we're coming up on 7 years. Is it 7 years this year? Even with the great addition of Nancy and all the folks that she's brought in, they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel now because they've got me coming from the back of the room where I prefer to be. But anyway, I guess it's up to me to actually do something now, right? Is this, boom? There we go. I am, as was told, I was in Desert Shield for just a few days, and we went right into Desert Storm, and I was at a base out of Germany. And what I would like to share with you this morning is some things I put together, some of the video footage I have. And my disclaimer is this. I was given carte blanche. I was allowed to go anywhere and everywhere. My commander was a friend of mine. I knew him from my church. So, I mean, there was no place that was off limits. For all my technical knowledge, the one thing that I did not do over the years is I did not digitize my videotape when I should have. My biggest thing about putting this together was, do I show you the original footage or do I go online and I can get some nice high definition stuff? And I want to keep this original. So the footage you're going to see today, a little bit here and a little bit there, is footage that I shot, but it was also footage that I was allowed access to from the Shaw Air Force Base combat camera crew. So I'm not taking credit for everything. But my disclaimer image that is up there is that some of it is pretty raw and it doesn't look great, but I kept it all very short, so not to bore you. So anyway, Desert Storm, I went to a couple of sources. My first source is retired Lieutenant Colonel Dewey Kautzman. It was a friend of mine, but Dewey was also one of our pilots in Desert Storm. Also, he was in my church, and being an aircraft mechanic, I did not get to know very many of the pilots, and then really the only reason I knew 2 or 3 of them is because they went to my church. So I've been talking with Dewey now for the last couple of months, and so my research on this, the specifics about their missions and some of the behind-the-scene things come from Lieutenant Colonel retired Dewey Kautzman. And Dewey has agreed, he doesn't know when, but whenever he comes, he has already agreed to come in and share with you from his perspective, if it's okay with Dick, from a pilot's point of view, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So here's what I would like to do, with your permission. I would like to go behind the scenes of the first day of the air war. We're going to do some snapshots. We're going to take some small little snippets, or as my wife said, tidbits, and just give you a little bitty overview. I'm not going to go into details about a whole bunch of stuff, but what it was like from one base, and we had several bases all over the creation, flying sorties. From one base that was flying, we were flying 3 squadrons of F-16s. Dick makes this look so natural, doesn't he? I won't be as smooth as here. Okay, we have all the branches of the service probably except Space Force. I don't know if we've had any of those. So we need to have some common background. As a teacher, when I had a new class, I had to get a sense of, okay, where does everybody start? What does everybody know? Well, since we have brothers and sisters here from the Coast Guard, the Army, Navy, and the Marines, I think I should get some common background and let you know what a real fighter aircraft looks like. Navy, close second, F-14 Tomcat, not a bad airplane whatsoever. Okay, little background, very short. I was stationed, Sue and I were stationed in Germany at the time. And our base flew 3 different F-16 squadrons. And I was with the 50th, there goes my voice, 50th TAC Fighter Wing. And we decided to take one of our squadrons to Desert Storm, and that was called the 10th TAC Fighter Squadron. Now, I was aircraft maintenance, folks, but at the time I was assigned to special duty to where it was called Maintenance Operations Control. And we dealt with all aspects of between the pilots and the maintenance personnel as far as what the configuration of the aircraft were going to be, whether they're going to do air-to-air. We launched, we recovered, and we did all of that. So when I went to the desert, we were in a little bitty room, not as fancy as this, with some whiteboards set up, and we tracked all aspects of the maintenance. Because I was in the mock, even though we worked 12-hour days, 7 days a week, I was given access to allowed to go out and shoot a lot of the video that you're going to see today. We were stationed in the United Arab Emirates. And has anybody heard or been to the UAE? Okay, nice place. To get there from Germany, we had to go on the workhorse of the Air Force, the C-130. Now, I met a couple of weeks ago, is my 130 pilot still in the room? Is he here today? Right here, give this man a hand, please. 130 pilots. No. They don't realize, they look at a 130 and they go, it's this old thing with their propellers, but that's a heavy-duty airplane. You can get into places other people can't you, sir? In and out. The war doesn't happen unless the herd flies you there. There you go, sir. Thank you. So, now, it's about now that I would be done. I think we're about that time. If my wife hadn't secretly called Dick up and told him that Larry was only going to do 10 minutes. So anyway, we loaded up a couple of C-130s. We're going from Germany to Saudi, which not real long. But of course, in the middle of getting and preparing for Desert Storm, we were in Desert Shield. And it was chaos. It was absolute chaos when it came to military aircraft, moving all the people and equipment around. So our pilots were about the end of their shift, or what they could call their crew time. So we landed in Saudi Arabia. We knew they were going to change our pilots out, but they said, it's okay. You can get off the airplane, go to the side of the ramp, sit off in there, and you can stretch your legs. And we're, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, we're tired, but we do it. And the next thing we know, there's a couple of forklifts bringing all our pallets over and setting it next to us. And we're scratching our heads going, this is not our destination. So our maintenance officer's starting to try to find somebody, and the next thing we know, the propellers start going, and there goes our 130 down the ramp, leaving us behind. So by the time we got to UAE with another airplane, we had been going 36 hours. So it was a lot of fun. All right, real quick. Everybody's favorite place, Tent City. Now, I know between the services we have different things, but any Army or Marines here been living in Tent City? Raise your hands. Okay, for those who've lived in Tent City, did you have your own homemade street signs? Well, just like they had in MASH, we had our own signs. Unfortunately, the signs did not tell us what row of tents held who. It was just, that's direction to get home. We were in one of the largest tent cities in theater during Desert Storm. We had 4,500 people there. Now, those of us who live in Arizona during the summer can relate to what I'm about to share with you if you've never stayed in a tent in the desert. When it comes time to taking a shower, there is no water available from any local system. So the military has these large water bladders they just set out on the desert floor, which is, okay, now you have a water supply. Here's the problem. 4:30 in the morning, when you want to take a hot shower and wake up, there is no hot water coming from a desert floor. It's freezing cold. Well, okay, so the end of a hot day, it's 100 plus degrees out, you're sweating, you want to go back and rest a little bit before your next shift, you think, I'm going to take a cold shower. That same bladder now has been sitting out in the 100-degree temperature, and that water is hot. So the sheikh that ran our particular section, each of the 7 areas of the United Arab Emirates are owned by families. He provided for us tractor trailers full of 2-liter bottles all over Tent City, so we always had water to drink. So we would grab these water bottles and we would take our showers with water bottles. Now, I know that's not impressive to my Army and Navy, or my Army and Marine brethren, but us chair folks, we have it rough. Okay, so as I said, we were in Tent City, and we had 10-man tents, and they provided everything for us when we got there. We were there just a few weeks before it started, and they said, okay, everything is here except for your floor, and we're going to provide the nails and the wood. You have to build your own floor, or you can go down and we'll give you a bunch of crates. And we thought, okay, no problem. Well, they also told us, well, you have to go out and you have to find your own hammers. So we headed out, large tent city, and we're going in every direction. I picked the closest road to our tent, and I'm going down and I'm looking, and off to the side, there's a young airman, he's in civilian clothes, sitting out in front of his tent, and he's reading a paper. So I said, cool, there's somebody, let me grab a hammer. So I walked up to the young guy and said, hey, you know why I'm here? We're building the floor. I need to borrow a hammer. And nothing. He doesn't say a word. He's just looking at me. Now, I'm not in uniform. He's not in uniform, so there's no protocol going on. And I said, hey, did you hear me? I need to borrow a hammer. We're building our floor. And finally he looks and he says, Larry? And now he's got my attention because I'm not wearing anything. Of course, he didn't say Larry anyway. And I'm looking at him and nothing's going off up here. And he goes, Larry? Larry Smith? And I'm going, yeah. He says, it's me. It's Ray Lewis. Ladies and gentlemen, the last time I saw this young man, he was my youngest son's best friend in high school. And we were stationed in Oklahoma. Here we are halfway around the world. And there is, to this day, I have to, when I talk about my past, my love for videography, this is the young man that really put the spark in me. Come to find out, Ray was a boomer on a KC-135s. And that immediately got my attention. Because they have been giving me carte blanche to shoot wherever I want, I'm thinking, can I go up on a 135? Well, yes, I was. The night before the Air War started, we were able to go up and I was able to video, we were refueling Navy jets off one of the carriers. So I contacted Ray the other day and I said, look, I'm putting together this little presentation and can I give tidbits? Can I give some tidbits about, what it was like for you on yours? So a couple of things Ray did share with me. His missions were only 4 to 8 hours long, and that was simply because they eventually would run out of fuel. It wasn't a matter that they could not fly longer. They were doing so many refuel contacts or sorties that they would run out of fuel and come home. On one single mission, one 8-hour mission, Ray said they did 69 separate refuels from a single airplane. Ray also wanted me to share with you this, that the general who was in charge of, I don't know that particular structure over refueling, who they fell under, came in and talked to the crews and they said, look folks, we're about to start the air war. And good luck. We are expecting to lose 30% of the tankers. For those of you who remember back in the day, we had this unfounded fear of the strength of the Iraqi army and their air force. Well, there's a lot of things that probably did not come true. At the end of the war, ladies and gentlemen, we never lost a single 135 or tanker. So anyway, I wanted to share this. I'm really proud of this. This, ladies and gentlemen, is retired E9 Chief Master Sergeant Ray Lewis. Okay, I bored you with the backstories. Let's get into some action here. We are day one. First aircraft to go launch on day one of the air war is 3 a.m. Our flights were, I think, a little bit later than that. What I'm going to do now is we are going to follow the jets from leaving the base, going, some of the things they're going to go through, and then returning to the base in one day. All right, let's hope this plays okay. Let's do the opening part.
Just 2 hours ago, Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq and Kuwait. These attacks continue as I speak. Ground forces are not engaged. This conflict...
How you doing? I'll get you. No. Good.
Now, F-16s, for those of you who may have seen picture and never been up close, it's a little bitty fighter. But this little bitty fighter is actually a multifaceted aircraft. It is not meant for air-to-air only. So it can carry 2 bombs, and we have an assortment of bombs. I won't bore you with all the details of 4 of them, but there are 2 specifically that we carried during Desert Storm. The first was what we call the Mach 82, and they're dumb bombs. So ladies and gentlemen, it's just like World War II dive bomb movies. They would come in, they had the electronics to help them, but they would just they would pickle and they would drop the bomb. A 500-pound bomb had 192 pounds of explosive. It was used on what they called soft targets, specifically troops, vehicles, and radar sites. The other larger bomb that they carried was called the Mark 84. This one was 2,000 pounds and carried 945 pounds of explosive. It was used on buildings, bridges, and infrastructure.
As of about an hour and 40 minutes ago, bombing of Baghdad started and has been intensifying, with bombs dropping every few seconds. What we've been able to glean so far from the BBC is that targets include telecom facilities as well as oil refineries. A lot of smoke over Baghdad right now. And as of yet, we have heard not even a peep from Saddam Hussein.
We've left the base. Our base has 3 squadrons. 2 are from Shaw Air Force Base, 1 from our base in Germany. We are always going out in a 40-ship package. This is every day. At the height of the war, which is most of the air war, our 40 ships were doing 160 sorties a day just from our base. We're going to talk about how we did 160 missions here in just a few minutes. Okay. Well, it takes a little bit to get between the UAE and Baghdad, and there is an in-flight refueling that does have to happen, and this is where my friend Ray comes in. And, well, I'm just going to let you see this for yourself.
Get circuit breaker, please. Where do you want circuit? What a beautiful morning. Done. Look at this. Hose on. Roger. And 6 o'clock, drop 45 right. I'd say 2 is about, he's probably 2 miles back. He's getting in. All right. Yeah. Next receiver, 355. Okay, about 15 feet. Everybody's got 6. Excellent. Contact. Often. No, I'm sorry. Silver 4. Yeah, that's what I missed.
Okay, now once he disconnects, off to the left, there's a whole row of more aircraft. So they're like little pups up behind Mom. One will peel off, and the other one will just come right up, and they'll just continually do this. Now we're going to look at, we've looked at the bombs, but the aircraft itself needs some air-to-air defense, and it carries 2 missiles. These are the AIM-9 missiles. It is a supersonic missile. When it leaves the rail on the wingtip of the aircraft, it's traveling at 794 miles an hour. Within 3 seconds of leaving the rail, it is at Mach 2.5. So it can move pretty quick. It is heat-seeking, but from the dome or the lead edge of the missile, it can detect in a 90-degree radius. It doesn't have to be straight ahead. So it can detect an enemy target off and down below or above to the side. The missile also has a capability of enduring 60 Gs on a turn when it comes off the rail. And thanks to our folks in the Navy, this missile is actually quite old. It started with the Navy in '56 and is now used by the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force. There's no audio with the next one. All right, you're wondering, why is it called a Sidewinder? Watch the bottom of the screen. It's reestablishing its target as it's moving and as the target is moving. So they call it the Sidewinder. This was taken by the combat camera crew from Shaw Air Force Base. This is the aircraft right before they're getting ready to drop on Baghdad. This is the closest footage of anything that I've ever seen while in the air. Let's go back to what I talked about. Our primary mission was to drop 2 bombs, and that's 2 little bombs from that airplane. We want to do several missions a day, but we have some things that are a factor. Is that me causing that static? Oh, okay. Well, here's our logistical issue, folks. We want to drop a lot of bombs, but we are 6 to 7 hours round trip from our base in United Arab Emirates just to drop those 2 bombs. Pilots were only allowed to do 3 missions in a day. Their mission may be 12 plus hours, but they cannot do more than 3 runs to Baghdad. So what's the solution? Well, some of my Army guys in here knows this place. Harley, you know this place, don't you? Well, our solution, folks, was a place up in Saudi Arabia called King Khalid Military City, or as we referred to it as KKMC. KKMC was only roughly a 2-hour round trip from Baghdad, which allowed our pilots the ability to go in and do multiple missions on Baghdad without the 6 to 7 hour round trip. Our pilots, once they dropped their initial load in Baghdad, they could fly to KKMC, they could land while they're leaving the engines running and the pilot is in the cockpit. They are doing what's called a hot pit refuel. They are actually refueling the aircraft while the engine is running. When the pilot is sitting there goes my voice. When the pilot is sitting there being refueled, he is already punching in his coordinates for his second bombing mission for Baghdad. So when he's ready to go, he doesn't have to mess with that. Now, the biggest difference between Desert Storm and today, in Desert Storm, once they refueled, they would shut the airplane down. The pilots would be able to hit the bathroom, grab a sandwich while they rearmed the airplane, and then would run out within an hour. Colonel Kautzman told me within an hour he could get refreshed, get back in, and 5 minutes after engine start, he was back in the air. The difference is today we do what's called an integrated combat turn. They leave the engines running now during the rearmament process of the aircraft, which has cut the time down considerably, which means the pilots don't get a break. So using KKMC, they were able to do 3 missions from the original start within a 12-plus hour, and when they returned to the base, the second crew could go. All right, we've dropped our bombs, they've gone through all kinds of stuff. At the end of the day, we've known how many planes out of those 40 aircraft actually got off. If we had any issues in flight, they had emergency bases they could land in. We knew that 40 left. In Tent City, over the loudspeakers, they would yell out, they would say out over the loudspeaker, we have 10 out of 40. We have 15 out of 40. They would continue to count, until we knew all 40 had returned, and you would often hear people cheering throughout Tent City. So now we're coming back and we're going to land. Yeah, they're good. Nope. You saw some airmen standing outside the aircraft, and we had what was called fingers off our taxiway. We had several directions that our planes could go. And what they would do is they would designate a separate taxiway for different aspects. There's an airman out there, and what he's doing is he's crouching down and looking. The first thing he's looking for is what we call air battle damage, or ABD. He is looking for if any shrapnel, anything from Iraqi ground forces that were flying has put holes in the aircraft, or if there's any damage to the aircraft they don't know about. The other thing we're looking for is if the pilot says, I went to pickle or drop my bomb, and the bomb did not release. We had a totally separate direction for that, so if the bomb did not release, it's a very volatile situation, they would go somewhere else. We heard rumors late in the war that people were seeing what they call sand sharks, and being the Americans that we are, we want to look and see everything. And being that I was a videographer and I had free roam, yes, I wanted to see if I could capture the elusive sand shark. So ladies and gentlemen, this is old footage. Nobody has challenged me on it, but I believe it to be true. Here are some sand sharks I caught in the desert. Hey, if it's on video, it's real, right? All right, so they've had a long day. They've dropped a lot of bombs. They've evaded. There's other stories I wish I could tell you. I don't want to bore you. The stories that Colonel Kautzman shared with me about almost running out of fuel because tankers were missed and all this, it's fascinating, but I'll let an actual pilot share that with you. So they're home. They're back on the ground. You know what pilots are going to do. They're going to want to share their stories. They have to debrief. They want to talk about what they just went through, so they look at what's called the heads-up display, which is the video that was recorded along with their audio so they can talk about their mission. Now, folks, those of you who have not been around pilots, whether it's the Navy, the Army, or the Air Force, I can tell a pilot across the room because this is how they talk. Okay, we were doing this. Yeah, I jinxed this way. And so they would get together, and you can tell a pilot right away. There's a debrief.
Over the top of the airfield.
Go up there, do some big time damage. We got to see missiles, we got to see airplanes blow up if you're close enough. Got to see some AAA. A little more than a lot of us would like, maybe, with the back of package, but that's shit hot.
Let me leave you some stats. The air war itself was technically considered done by the 23rd, even though the war went on to the 28th. In that time, our United States Air Force tankers flew over 15,000 missions. We had 116,000 plus combat sorties were flown, and this is from all branches of the service. Out of that 116,000 plus, 69,000 were the United States Air Force. On top and above and beyond our fighter or bomber sorties, our cargo aircraft did over 18,000 air deployments, moving our people and equipment around. We dropped over 88,500 bombs in the course of the air war. And I have just a closing thought here. Would all my Desert Storm vets please stand? Let's give them a hand, folks. You know, I haven't got to be around Navy pilots or Army pilots, but I've been around a lot of Air Force pilots. And folks, especially the days you hear them flying around here from Luke, they put in the hours. They train, they train, they train. They want it to be when they get into an actual warfare situation that their instincts take over from their muscle memory, the reaction happens. But occasionally, not all that training comes back to you.
When you get there, you're going, oh, what does this mean again? I got beep. God, I hope that's not something important.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for me.
For us non-military people that come here, what is a sortie?
Okay, am I on? Yeah. That's a good question. That's simply a term for whether it's a cargo aircraft leaving to do a mission, a fighter leaving to do a mission, a tanker on that individual mission. We call that a sortie. So, and that's a good question. I forget that I'm using terms that some people don't. Now, the only time that that's not the case is when you're in France and they call exits sorties. Just like in Germany, they call exits Ausfahrt. Yes?
I have a very good friend and neighbor, retired from the Air Force, Tinker Air Force Base.
Hey.
I received a call from Colonel Danny, and I said, Danny, what's all that noise? He says, we're above the big sandbox. He was in charge of an AWACS.
Oh.
And I'll tell you, without those people, he says, Ken, I can look down and see hundreds of activities. I know where everybody is and who we have to call in to make the proper changes. So AWACS was the eye in the sky.
Yeah, it was. Thank you for that, sir. Thank you. Yeah, they were.
I do appreciate very much so the 110 in attendance this morning, and we look forward to having you back here next week. To our guests, thank you for joining us this morning. We sincerely appreciate your joining us, and we hope that you will return and share in our camaraderie. As a final reminder, let's not overlook the importance of our Red Friday mission, and that is to keep our deployed warfighters in our thoughts and prayers, and to continue to demonstrate our support for these fine men and women. See you at the T-33 for a photo.